We'll just wait.
Awkward silence.
Welcome everybody to This Week in Cannabis Live. I am Jay Rosenthal. We're here with like a full slate today. Anna Ray Grabstein, Ben Larson, Mark Hauser, Jeremy Burke, and special guest Judson Hill, the market president for Fine Fettle in Georgia. And we're going to get to that in a second, but I am also not in my normal place. That is the CN Tower. I am at the Canadian Securities Exchange for another project that you'll run next week with the CEO of a company up here. So thank you all for joining us here. We're streaming on multiple platforms across the internet, across the World Wide Web today. So thank you all for joining us if you're joining us online. There's a lot happening. And there were earnings. There is, Anna Ray, we're going to start with you because last week while we were doing this, you broke news that said the DEA was receiving or about to receive applications for the next round of people to register. Has that happened yet, aside from dispensary owners and operators?
Not that I'm aware of. And I think breaking news is maybe a little more flattering than it was. But I did announce that the DEA seemed to have updated their website. And if that counts as news, maybe when the government does anything, it's news. And there has been more going on with the government.
They updated their website by saying that they were going to be updating their website.
Exactly.
So
but it does seem to be getting closer that the supply chain businesses are going to have a new portal and place to start applying for their own registration. And Cultivated put out a great piece about this this week from Chris Satya.
Yeah.
Jeremy, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, no, Chris's piece is really good. I think, some of the interesting details in there that have been discussed on social media that we haven't really discussed yet, are the gotcha questions. They seem to be the same for everyone who wants to register with the DEA. Has the applicant ever been convicted of a crime in connection with controlled substances under state or federal law? Has any officer of the corporation been convicted, et cetera? So the whole thing is a little bizarre. Like, of course, the DEA takes the most law enforcement angle possible on this. At the same time, I think it's a good sign that the registration is opening, for more businesses and more parts of the supply chain. It means things are moving. But I think the thrust of Chris's story was, regardless of your feelings or thoughts about the question that are sort of gotcha, fill them out appropriately and accurately, because you really do not want to mess with the federal government on this. And so that was the legal advice that came through in Chris's story. So I think it's a pretty interesting dynamic, to say the least. It'll be interesting to see how it unfolds.
I hadn't thought of this till this very second. And Mark, this goes to your point that you always say that drugs are hard. But how you had to pay?
Scary.
Drugs are scary. Drugs are scary, yes. How you had to pay for that registration with PayPal? I wonder if I wonder if that PayPal account got shut down because the people paying were associated, just like we got shut down with Chase, like people paying were associated with cannabis businesses. I wonder if that is sort of one of the hangups, is they can't figure out how to take payments from cannabis companies without getting shut down. I hadn't thought of it, but not out of the realm of possibility.
Well, there's a reason it's not Stripe, right? Because Stripe will not work with the industry, and PayPal's KYC, I guess, is just a little bit less rigorous than Stripe, and so they'll do it. But it's bizarre that the federal government is using PayPal to do this.
Right. You can ACH your income tax payment to the IRS.
Right.
So it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a small point, but I actually haven't thought about it yet. I wonder if everybody's getting the government's getting their PayPal taken away.
One thing worth mentioning is that while everyone's rushing, or some folks are rushing to register, and some aren't, but what isn't clear is the fees that are going to be levied once the registration is granted, and when you're going to have to pay them, and how high they'll be. They have published sort of estimates or when fees might be levied, but not what the final amounts will be. And this could have some significant impacts on businesses if it ends up being that that you can still not pay 280E without registration if you're not conducting interstate commerce in your state, that some people are having to pay fees because they registered and some people aren't having to pay fees because they chose not to register. And that could create some complication, but it has yet to be seen. The fees are not active yet, but they're coming. The government's going to get theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my big question. Is like, what if you're just a medical marijuana company, so you're Schedule III, but not DEA registered, and not doing anything different than you currently are in your state systems? And to your point, there are these fees. There's like, I think for manufacturers, it might be as high as $3,000 or $4,000, and then there's the federal tax on biomass that I think I saw something around like $113 a kilogram. So it's like, what if you just don't register and don't plan on doing interstate commerce?
Well, and remember, interstate commerce isn't opening up necessarily.
No, that's my point. Like, it's
Yeah. Everybody's, it seems to be this sort of, I think it's I'm not saying that you all are misunderstood, but I hear this a lot recently, and it's just, but interstate commerce is not necessarily opening up. And I think all of this is just indicative of the fact that all of this, so much of this is still such an unknown. And that's why I think it's been what, a couple of hundred reported applications so far? That's not that many.
Right.
It's funny. I was actually
Judson. Did you register?
What say you?
Yes, we did. I was actually catching up with Ben last week before the new Georgia news. And we did register with the DEA, whatever it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago on the first day it was open. So quite a swing of events here in Georgia between the rescheduling news and our Georgia local policy. So we are now in the process of being DEA registered more for the purposes of 280E.
I'm losing Judson a bit, but also he stepped on my my intro, which was the devil went down to Georgia, and then I also realized, well, wait, Judson, are you back? I also realized that emoji can be construed as other things, but that's
I'm here.
Can you talking about Georgia, and Judson Hill from Fettle in Georgia is here. Judson, I think you're back. Give us a bit of what happened this week in Georgia, because I mean it is monumental, which is why we wanted to have you on, but also you're the best person to talk to about.
Yeah, and also tell us what Fettle is. Give us a minute on your background too, please.
Yeah.
Of course, and I appreciate y'all having me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, obviously, I know everyone here from over the past 10 years. It's great to see everyone. Fettle, we are one of the 6 licensed operators in Georgia. So we're fully vertically integrated and only a medical operator in Georgia to the rescheduling point. And the big news this week is that our bill we've been working on the last 2 years, SB 220, was signed into law by the governor. If anyone saw the signing statement, it was a bit begrudgingly and very clear that they don't want recreational cannabis to be the outcome of this. But a pretty big step where historically the legislature here and the governor were not the biggest proponents of medical cannabis. We've had a low THC oil program for about a decade. And this really changes it to be a true medical. So I think that makes us the 41st state with a medical cannabis program. And the main points are we're able to sell flower and vape for vaporizable purposes, no combustion. And it also expands some of the medical conditions as well, so that patients can get access earlier on in their conditions rather than being at the end of life, which was how it previously read.
And I was thinking to myself that this is something that President Trump and Brian Kemp quasi agree on, which is not common among those two. But give us, let's talk about sort of on the ground level. What does it mean for patients in Georgia? And then I guess, what does it also mean for Fettle? Because it seems to open up a lot of product categories, but also make it easier for patients. Like, do you think there'll be a huge ramp up, and are you prepared for that? And what does that look like for you as one of the 6 licensees?
Yes, we definitely anticipate a big ramp up. I mean, at the highest level, there's only 36,000 patients in the Georgia program right now, which is about 0.02% of our 11 million people in the state. most medical cannabis programs have closer to 2% plus penetration. So that would get us up to about 250,000 patients if you were to assume we got to where most other programs are. And I think the elephant in the room, as everyone here knows, is we've been a dispensary that doesn't have vapor flower for the past 3 years, which obviously makes up, I don't know, 80% or so of sales at any normal store. So, and then there's, the traditional market, there's the hemp stores. So I think people in Georgia clearly have been going elsewhere to get cannabis. And the hope is that this drives them into the safe, tested, regulated channels. And also with the conditions, it's actually relatively easy to get a card in terms of we have medicine. The process has gotten much easier. But the law read before that you had to have end stage or severe of most of the conditions. So it really prevented a lot of doctors from feeling comfortable recommending a card where, let's say you had cancer, you had to be at your end of your life, frankly, to qualify, which is inhumane and really just made the doctors confused of when to give it to someone. Now a doctor can recommend you a card as soon as they think cannabis would help you if you have any other conditions. So not adding a condition per se, but just growing who could actually access it.
If I may, Judson, I've asked you this before, but give us a thumbnail of what the hemp-derived THC market is like in Georgia, because it's really unlike most of the markets we talk about in that there is one and it's regulated. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously a hot button topic in general of the hemp and regulated cannabis, but we have hemp regulations in Georgia for the past 2 years. I'm a bit biased as a Georgian, but I think we're ahead of the curve versus some of the southern states that just left it totally unregulated. And that's part of the problem with the pending ban. So in Georgia, you can get a hemp permit if you're a convenience store, grocery store, or even us as a medical cannabis operator. We have one as well. So we sell hemp beverages. We're able to sell, large national brands like a Kiva or Wild Gummy, all within our medical cannabis store, where obviously anyone over 21 can purchase those products. So I'm not, an anti-hemp person by any means, but I think the issue has been there's also all the smoke shops, all the gas stations selling THC, PDQ, whatever flavor they want to make up. So that's been part of the issue, has been more the enforcement of
we're gonna get high-speed internet to Georgia at some point too.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Usually it's Jeremy with the technical internet problems. Justin, we're having trouble. You're cutting in and out, but I think we got the gist that there is a hemp regulatory. There are hemp regulations there. You have the ability to sell it within your dispensary as well, and there's also, let's call it, gas station version of all of that as well, which is not ideal. Anything else that we know about Georgia aside from the fact that's where I went to school? Anna, Ray, Ben, Jeremy, Mark.
People love THC everywhere, and I think the hemp market proved the consumer in Georgia, and so this is good news for Judson and the other medical operators that these new form factors are going to be allowed, and I think that it means that there's going to be more quality product available. So this is a win.
It is a win.
Yeah.
If
Also interesting to just hear about this kind of not just a bifurcated market of hemp and cannabis, but the kind of the intermingling of it, selling it in dispensaries. I think that's really interesting and unique, and probably reserved for states that are kind of in that fledgling regulated cannabis state, and that there's more of an opportunity there than say in the more kind of legacy markets, obviously from what we've witnessed so far.
Yeah.
So I understand. So you can sell hemp flower in a dispensary, but you can't sell non-hemp flower in a dispensary.
That's to you, Judson.
Is that right? Am I understanding
No,
that right?
that is not right.
Oh, okay.
You
Yeah.
understood everything right, other than you inferred that there was flower. So part of the hemp
got
regulations
it.
2
Yeah.
years ago banned THCA flower. Again, I'm biased, but I think we did a pretty good job in what some of the federal regulations are working towards. We got rid of the THCA flower. We got rid of most of the inhalable products, and they did their best to get rid of the synthetics. But then I'm not sure where I got cut off before. But of course, people went and made the THCPs in all of the world. So there are some of these bad products floating around out there. We just sell the beverages and more of like your trusted, your Wilds, your Caminos, the big brands in the hemp form.
Nice. Thank you for
Judson,
clarifying that.
Can I ask a question while you're running smoothly? I hope this works. This is a big win for the cannabis industry in Georgia. It's mostly a red state, outside of the 2020 election. Can you talk about?
I think you mean stolen election, Jeremy. Just kidding.
When they didn't find the ballots. Not touching that one on Twitter. Can you talk a little bit about how you and the industry swims in the right direction when you're trying to advocate for these changes, right? Because you have the hemp side, the medical side, you have advocates, and everyone seems to want different outcomes. How do you channel it in the right direction to get a win like this?
It's a great question, and a tricky one, I guess, for me to answer. I mean, being in the industry for a long time, I have friends on all sides of it, and I'm an advocate, obviously, myself. But definitely there's a hemp prerogative, there's the medical cannabis prerogative, and then I'd say the advocates generally just want access to the plant to a large degree. So we worked really closely with the other licensees to answer your question. I think being aligned as an industry as much as possible is the clear answer. So coming from me being in California where there's thousands of operators and it's a bit more sporadic, we worked hand in hand with our 3 other friends being the other licensees the past few years to really get a clear ask, which was to create a medical program, similar to Florida, where we have vertical integration. I was actually talking to Anna Ray right before we hopped on, but unique to Georgia, we can wholesale to each other. It has not happened yet because obvious reasons. The program is pretty small, but it's really been working in coordination, I'd say, with the other licensees. And then obviously we have a strong lobbying effort. I've done a lot of work down at the Capitol as well. And I mean, it's been all hands on deck to get the legislature to come around, but it did pass with an overwhelming majority in both the House and the Senate, which are both Republican bodies. So to your point, I mean, the Republican Party does control Georgia, and they were far and away supportive of the issue. So I think they really did come around to their credit, and it's no longer a partisan issue.
That's movement.
That's great. Yeah, it's good to hear.
Also, I guess to your point on the elections and all, not to get too controversial, but it is election year here in Georgia, and we do have primaries next week. So it would be pretty big where Governor Kemp will be leaving office, which was part of why we were excited to get the signature, because I guess there's 2 schools of thought. Either he could, sign and be headed out anyways, or he could be headed out and decide not to sign it for whatever reason, because he was historically not the most pro-cannabis governor.
Right.
He's been a great governor in my opinion, but not the biggest fan of our industry historically. He did sign, and then I guess who the new governor is, lieutenant governor, all of those are up for elections in the primary next week. And we definitely have been working with a handful of them to pass SB 220, as a lot of them are state senators and lieutenant governors and things of that nature. So a few people I hope get elected so that we can continue to keep things moving here in Georgia.
Amazing. I want to be careful about everybody's time, and we have a new graphic that I want to introduce for our last segment of the show. Is everybody ready for this? I just want everybody to be prepared for this graphic. Are you ready? It's for winners and losers. Here we go. So also prepare your winners and losers, because that's the last segment. Here we go. That's our new stinger for the last segment of the show. A thumbs up, thumbs down. Is that a winner or a loser? I guess that's the first thing. Winner? Okay.
It's a winner.
Anna Ray, you can't be on the fence about this. And because you're on the fence, you are first for winners and losers. Who are your winners and losers? Winner or loser this week?
I've got a winner for us. The winners are home growers in California. This weekend is Clonetopia, and it is being marketed as the largest legal clone drop ever in history. And it's happening in Northern California at a couple dispensaries. It's hosted by David Downs, a cannabis journalist. And it's a whole bunch of different breeders who are coming together, and they're selling clones to individuals like all of us. And some of them are even $1,000. Usually a clone is something like $15 at a dispensary, and there's not a lot of sales that go on to these things. But Clonetopia is bringing together the biggest, baddest breeders, and they're dropping all kinds of crazy genetics. So I think the winners are home growers that are going to go to Clonetopia and grow something awesome in their backyard this year.
Anna Ray, what's going to end up in your backyard? It's going to be $1,000 clone?
No, I usually grow two plants in my backyard, not 6, which was I'm allowed to grow, because then I end up with too much weed, you guys. So
send it down to Georgia.
About as much as I can handle. But I don't know yet. Maybe I'll have to cruise through Clonetopia, but I will not be buying $1,000 clone. I'm not that fancy.
Yeah, fair enough. Judson, you're up next for winners or losers.
Pretty biased here, but I'd say Georgia is the winner. I got my Braves hat on, so Atlanta Braves, best record in baseball. We got the governor to sign our medical cannabis bill, making us the 41st state with a true medical cannabis program. And to the rescheduling, we're a medical-only state, so pretty big windfall for us as a licensed medical operator in Georgia the past month.
Not a self-serving winners and losers at all right there, Judson. Don't worry about that. Mark, you're up. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No. I want to say it's both a winner and a loser, which is Apollo for buying the company that owns and puts on MJ BizCon. I think it's sort of a too early to tell as to whether what it'll mean for the industry, and what are they going to put more resources? Are they going to shift it, change it, kill it? I mean, it's an unknown, but I would call that a winner. I think it's a win for the industry. That it will probably bring a change, and it does seem like everybody wants it to continue, but it needs to sort of evolve.
If you do Control F on anything that was related to this deal, you will not find the word cannabis, marijuana, or really MJ Biz in any of it. Just so you know, it's going to be a footnote of the overall company. So we shall see. I will note that Emily Lewis, who was the head of MJ Biz for the previous Emerald, left the week before this announcement. Take that as you will or won't, but that is the sequence of things that did happen related to that. So that's your winner, maybe, and or loser, depending on where you fall in that equation. Ben, you're up.
Oh, I was going to do a winner, but now I feel like I have to do a loser. Can I do two? I'm going to do a loser, just so I could be negative Nelly. I'm going to put the state of California as the loser because out of all the movement that has been happening over the last couple weeks, rescheduling, earnings, it just persistently shows like how challenging it is to operate in California, and that it's not getting better. It's actually getting worse. Margins are getting tighter. EBITDAs are going negative. And yep, your hemp ban didn't work. So thank you, state of California. On the positive side, we have a winner in Congressman Andy Barr out of Kentucky. He got the bid from President Trump. He's taking the mantle on the hemp conversation. And instead of just pushing through a bill that makes people happy, he's actually bringing in stakeholders, listening to them, and trying to develop a bill that is actually passable. And so that is what the hemp industry needs. So thank you, Congressman Barr, for putting forth the effort and hearing all the disparate voices.
There you go. Jeremy, you're up. Winner or loser?
I got both. My winners are more fun. One, you preempted me on this, Jay, but Mitch Marner, that was the best goal I've ever seen in my entire life watching hockey. It's incredible. I hate that it wasn't in a Leafs jersey, but it is what it is. Another winner is now that the Raptors are out the Knicks. They look like a buzzsaw. I'm catching Knicks fever here in New York. I want them to win. A loser, and it pains me to say this because they are kind of my entrepreneurial and journalistic heroes, but Axios, I think, had a very weak piece from the two founders, lumping in cannabis as a sin with AI-generated pornography and sports betting on your phone. I won't preempt my column. I'd encourage all the viewers to go read the piece. But I thought it really echoed, a 1980s Reagan era just say no viewpoint on this stuff, and it really flattened the distinction between the positives of cannabis and the negatives of everything else they talk about. So read the piece. That's my loser for the week. With apologies to them, I love Axios, I love them, but they missed the mark on that one.
Caveats
Be better.
duly noted, Jeremy. I wanted to have a loser. I'll give my loser. My loser is the state of Pennsylvania, which still is like the most moderate state without any conversation about sort of cannabis reform, or actually lots of conversation, but nothing actually happening. But my winners of the week are two that generally don't get on the same conversation. But Ilhan Omar, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and John Fetterman both said positive things about cannabis this week. Ilhan Omar in particular said that she thinks, I forget, let me just get the quote.
She was great.
That she thinks a lot of people in Congress smoke, I'm going to say weed. I think she might have said cannabis or marijuana, but I like the idea of congressmen and congressmen and women getting together after a tough day of voting and legislating to smoke at her condo somewhere in DC. I'm just kidding. That's not what she said, but she did say a lot of people smoke. So I do like that about our Congress getting more chill and better to hang out with. And I'm going to end it there. But John Fetterman also said it's not a problem smoking pot. Maybe people would. I think he actually did use the word chill. So I do like that. I want to thank you, Anna Ray, Ben, Mark, Jeremy, and certainly Judson for being our special guest this week. We're going to have a special guest next week, too, so stay tuned for that. The people on this call don't even know that, but there's going to be a special guest. Everybody have a great weekend. It's actually another winter. It's a long weekend here in Canada, or most of Canada. It's called Victoria Day, also called May 24. Do you guys know why? Jeremy might know why. May 24 because there's 24 beers in a case.
Yeah.
It's like the unofficial kickoff to summer. So we call it
May 24.
May 24. Everybody knows what we're talking about here. So everybody, thank you so much for being here. Enjoy the long weekend if you're watching in Canada. Have a good Monday if you're not. And everybody have a good weekend. We'll see everybody soon. Thanks, everybody.
Take off, eh?
Good to see y'all.